So that's just a plug for that class first. And but this morning I want to talk about the power of focus, and I want to tell you why this word has come up for me so much lately. And that is that Reverend Shad Groverland, the chairman of Unity Worldwide Ministries, and he's someone I have known for 10 years or so. He's fairly young to be the chairman of Unity Worldwide Ministries, and I was pretty glad that they went with a younger person. I think it's great. He's got some great new ideas. But one of the things he decided to do last year, it was his first year at the helm, and he was really reaching out and doing it. He's doing workshops all over the United States at different Unity ministries. And one of the things he's talking about is to focus on what you're good at. Too many of us churches after I was going to say Katrina, good grief, where'd that come from? After the pandemic, about the same thing, it just lasted longer, is that we don't know how to do church anymore. We were bursting at the seams when the pandemic started. We personally here were so full that we were already deciding how we were going to add on. We had brought in every chair we could bring in, and we had gotten everybody into the room we possibly could. We had put the chairs as close together as possible and saying, wow, we're growing like crazy. Then what happens? You get shut down. Who would have guessed that? It's just like me recently with my broken bone in my ankle and a bone in my foot the first week in December, and I'm thinking, what in the heck is that? I've never broken a bone in my life. I just wasn't paying attention. I wasn't focusing on what I was doing. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And so made it through December by sitting up here with that big horrible cast on my leg, and then got to wear it another month because I hadn't healed quite soon enough. The doctor had the nerve to tell me that the older we get, we don't heal quite as fast as we did when we were younger. I resented that. It's like, how old do you think I am? I'm only 43, for heaven's sakes. Anyway, so then I got the flu. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, well, that's why I said I almost feel like I've been in an altered universe here, and here we are, February the 5th, and I feel like this is the first of the year for me. So anyway, I'm going to start out with a bang. I felt so good this week and just couldn't wait to get back to church this Sunday morning and talk about some of the things that I've been thinking about, I've been processing since I've been focused. I've had to stay in. I had no choice. I had to. It forces you. So if you're a person that thinks you've got to be out there all the time doing everything, I got news for you. The universe is going to slow you down. And maybe that's what happened with us at church here too. In the whole world, we had a forced staying in, didn't we? We had a forced staying in. So what Reverend Shad is doing, he's going around to different Unity centers with a workshop, and he's talking about the power of focused ministry. And he's saying to everybody, you can't be everything to everybody. You get strung out too far when you do that as a minister and as a ministry. You have to decide what you're really good at. Focus on that. Don't offer everything else in the world. Focus on what you're good at. So I am going to focus on Sunday morning, because Sunday morning is what I'm good at. And delivering the talk on Sunday morning is what I'm good at. So I'm focusing on that, okay? And one thing about a minister, we all assume the minister can be the go-to for every single thing in the world. And the thing that happens is he or she will finally get to the point where they'll break. So you have to decide, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm going to focus on. I won't be participating with the Reiki circle. I apologize, but I'm going to let those that are really good at that handle that. I'm going to focus on what I'm good at, and that's teaching. That's what I'm good at. Okay. And he's also recommending that the ministries focus on what they're good at, and we've dedicated so much time and effort and resources into live streaming and reaching those folks out there. And he says, if you're good at the Sunday service, bring them back in. Bring them back in. And there's a way to do that. And this is what we're good at. Our musicians, our girls that are usually here, and everybody misses them this morning. It's because this is what we're good at. Okay? So that's what we're going to focus on. So the power of focus this morning, that I wanted to tell you that that's what, and if you'll move on to the next slide, Andrea. Reverend Shad was just saying, what you focus upon expands. Be careful where you place your focus. It's just like when we left this morning. How many people get distracted and you can't remember if you close the garage door? You can't remember where you put your keys. You can't remember where you put your phone. You don't ever do that, do you? Do you think if you focus on what you're doing, that might work out better for you? Anybody ever had that thought? So concentrate on what you're good at. We've already talked about that. Look at what you truly believe. Jesus said, I tell you the truth. You can say to the mountain, and thank you for that music. That was perfect today. Everything you guys did, it was perfect. You can say to the mountain, may you be lifted up and thrown into the sea, and it will happen. Mark 11:23. Now, we know that if Jesus were alive today, he would reframe a lot of the things he said. What he was saying, he was talking to people 2,000 years ago. If he were talking today, I think he might say, if the channel you're tuned to isn't working for you, tune into a different channel. Find a higher network. Find something higher that works for you. And I'm pretty sure that's the way he would say that. But what he was saying was, where do you place your faith? What do you truly believe? And what do you truly believe you are good at? Focus on that. What are you good at? We get spread out too far, furthering that other comment that you can't be good at everything. I was reading a story about Steve Jobs, and he was giving some advice to the fellow Mark Parker, who was the CEO of Nike. And at that time, they were floundering, just absolutely floundering. They had hundreds of products, but they only had 30 that were really great, outstanding products, and they had about 350 that were just crummy. So it didn't take Steve Jobs long to tell him. He advised him. He said, man, you've got your product line too scattered. You are doing too many things. Now, just choose what you're really good at and eliminate the rest. Well, all the powers there, those thinking people at the head of the company got together, and the product managers, and they said, well, you know, these products we've expanded to, nobody really wants them, they're not buying them, but we keep doing that because we made a decision once. Now, how many things in your own life do you keep doing because you're going to prove you weren't wrong when you made that decision? Anybody ever done that? And you just keep doing it. Well, it was so obvious to Steve Jobs because, see, he'd had that experience before with his own company. And when he came back in the 90s to, was it Apple? They were so spread out doing so many different things, it was incredible. And so he had already chopped and said, cut it out. Let's do these few things we're good at and we'll excel. And they did. And it was the same with this company. It took him no time at all to tell him, you've got to quit this. You've got to hone it down and just offer what you're good at. And they've been extremely successful since. So I think that a lot of times in our own lives, we've made a decision and we're going to stick with it no matter what, even if it doesn't turn out well. But so sometimes we just need to pare down what we're doing and focus on what's good. So what do you believe? Jesus said, I tell you the truth. You can say to the mountain, may you be lifted up and thrown into the sea, and it will happen. What did that mean? He means, what do you really believe? What's your faith in? I know that you'll be with someone and they are grumbling all the time about how good someone else's life is, and you're thinking they'll be talking about, well, you know, so-and-so, they just keep getting good upon good upon good upon good. All these good things continue to happen to them. What they don't really understand is this person that's so successful has raised their consciousness, their godness, their isness, to their higher self, where they're in a totally different energy of vibration. And so their good is coming to them constantly. What you ask, you receive. And many times we're asking because all of our thoughts are negative. So if all you're doing is grumbling about how bad things are, never going to get any better, just grumbling, your good isn't going to come to you. So if you're focusing on the negative, your good's not going to come. You cannot solve a problem from the consciousness with which it was created. I believe Einstein said that. And that means if a problem has been developed in your life, you are not going to solve it from the same way of thinking that you've always used. It's not going to happen. Choose this day whom you will serve. Jesus said that too. Decide what vision you will use and focus upon that. And what he was saying was do you want to hold a lower vision? Problems, negativity, the things that come up on this earth always. Or do you want a higher vision for yourself? a higher way of living and being and thinking. I heard about a psychologist who was assigned to work with a young man, and he had an addiction. His addiction was so bad. He just had a long history of it. His name was Jack, and he showed up in the office of a Dr. Estelle Parsons. And he had a thick folder of all the problems that he'd had all his adult life, and he could never get away from them. So Dr. Parsons began to interview him, and he launched into all these stories and justifications for why he had his addictions and why all these bad things continually followed him throughout his life. He just had bad luck. Whereas he could name 100 people to you that had good luck and good things happened to them, but he had bad luck and nothing good ever happened to him. Therefore, he had decided to drown all his troubles with alcohol. So she says to him the first week they met, "Tell me about what you did this week that was not addictive." So can you imagine most psychologists that you're going to talk to, they're going to ask you what makes you drink over and over and over again, and you're just going to talk about that till you're blue in the face, and they are too, until they just can't stand listening to it anymore. But she took another tact and decided to ask him, "What in your life did you do this week that wasn't addictive?" Well, the first week, he had a hard time coming up with something, but he did. And he came up with something that he had done that was strictly healthy, and it was not from his addictive state or a drunken state. It was from a healthy mind. So that got him thinking. And the next week, he did that a little bit more. And so each week, as they progressed, he had more and more to report that did not, where his life, he was acting from a normal stance, a higher way of being than from that addictive state he'd been living all his adult life, until several months later, he was healed. And it also reminds me of the statement from Jesus where he asked the woman, "Do you want to heal? Do you want to heal? Do you really want to heal? Or do you want to keep that addiction? Do you want to keep that excuse? Do you want to keep that burden? Do you want to move forward in life?" So it didn't take that many more months that he did heal and went forward with his life in a healthy manner, healthy relationships. So sometimes if we just focus on the positive long enough, we can heal. So choose this day whom you will serve. What he was saying was, do you want to serve from the ego? Do you want to serve from a higher place? Decide what vision you will use and focus upon that. Mastery requires focus and consistency. Do you know how many times you go out to a restaurant and you think about this yourself, and it may be a working meal, it may just be a meal with a family, it may be your meal at home, it may be a meal with friends. I want you to just think about it. How many of the people there are looking down at their phone every few minutes? That's distraction. That's not focus. I suggest that if we started doing less multitasking. Do you know you cannot excel at anything if you're multitasking all the time? You cannot excel at anything. Do you think the sports person that's trying out for the Olympics is multitasking? Absolutely not. The person that's wanting to run in the Olympics, do you think they're multitasking, checking their phone every few minutes, listening to see if somebody's going to text them? I bet they don't even have their phone on them. Do you? I just suggest that what's happened to us, that we're all multitasking so much, we cannot even focus on a conversation. We can't focus on driving, can we? Because we're paying attention to something else. We can't focus on our family that we're sitting with, having dinner with. The busy executive has brought their phone home and it's sitting on the table while he or she should be with their family, spending family time, listening to what happened at school today. You can't do that. You can't be totally focused as a parent or a partner. You can't be focused if you're multitasking. So I guess my suggestion from this is that it is a spiritual thing to do, to focus on what you're good at. Do that. If you've been floundering and you don't know where to put your energy for the future, where to find a job, what to do, ask yourself, what do I love to do? What do I really enjoy? Focus on that. If you're healing and you have a tremendous healing need, don't multitask, folks. Focus on that, the amount of time you need to. And if family members and friends don't understand that, then they need to have an adjustment in their attitude. And that can come with kindness and gentleness. We don't need to be ugly. But focusing is extremely important. It's spiritual work. It's spiritual practice. It's what we're called to do if we ever want to be good at anything. It requires focus. And I thank you this morning. I can see that everyone in the room has been focused on my words. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you've come here and you're going to help us rebuild this spiritual center. And the next thing you know, we're going to be bursting at the seams again as we're focused upon bringing people back into the building. Because that's what we're good at. What we're good at is the music, the words, the sharing that the platform assistants do, those that share the daily word, those that are sharing their light and their love and their fellowship right here. It's what we're good at, and we're going to build upon that. Thank you for your time.